The review is about to begin, sir. Let's talk about Phantasm. So, this movie came out in 1979. This is written and directed by Don Conscarelli, something like that. And this tells a very odd story about this little boy and his brother who live close to this Morningside Cemetery funeral home. And the owner of that place is this tall guy known as the Tall Man. And one day, the little boy sees the tall man doing something suspicious, something funny he shouldn't be doing, and starts to investigate and finds out that this guy isn't exactly human. He's got all kinds of dwarves or Jawas from Star Wars, like these Star Wars looking people. It's odd. This movie's just very weird. This is a franchise that I have never even heard of until a couple of years back. And when I joined the horror community online, I actually started like getting into the horror community and like hearing other people actually talk about all these movies and franchises I've never heard of. This is one of them. No one's ever really talked about this franchise in my close circle. No one ever brings it up. So this is new. This is going to be a fresh perspective for all 5 of these reviews. I've never seen these before. So this was my first watch. And overall, I was just kind of lukewarm on it. I was like, it's alright. And I will go over all the things that I did not like. But first, let's go over the things I did like. Positives. Let's talk about this low-budget horror movie. This was like $300,000, right around the time that Halloween came out. This was right after Halloween, so like in 1979. And I feel like maybe that's why this franchise and this movie never really got its popularity as much, especially back then, was because it came out right after Halloween, and then like Friday the 13th was right after it. It was like sandwiched in between 2 franchises that were way more popular, so therefore no one ever really talked about Phantasm. That's just my theory. Now, the things I liked is the score. I think that's the best part of the whole movie. It's just the score is just phenomenal. I love it. It's just the sound. It's almost like John Carpenter-esque, like The Fog or something like that. It's so catchy. It just stays in your head. It's on loop. It's just the best part. I really like the sound. And got some boobs in here. Got some opening tits you get to see. And I really like the weapon in the movie, the sphere, the ball. It's like shiny and it just flies around. It's almost like it's like a drone. That's like a guard dog for the tall man, just roaming the halls of the funeral home looking for intruders. And it's got like these little knives that come out of it and stab people and like sucks their brains out and just like creates a cool visual with the blood coming out. And I will say this movie has some fun, bizarre moments with the fingers getting chopped off and the mustard blood and the finger in the box turns into a fly. There's some fun moments. And I think the characters are decent overall. There's not any characters where you just hate them or you don't care if they live or die. Nothing like that. So the characters are okay. They're not hilarious or anything. They're not very entertaining, but they're just okay. And I will say that there is actually some good tension in this movie. It kind of goes back and forth between like just horror and kind of comedy with the whole like fly in the drain thing when the finger turns into a fly. That starts to get kind of comedic, and just the idea and the visual of these like little people chasing them, that never is scary to me. It's just kind of funny when you see like these little people in cloaks, like these robes, I guess, just running around. It's not really scary, but it kind of just has comedic moments, but it's mainly straightforward and serious. And there's some good tension, like when he's in the casket and he's just looking at the guy walking towards him. He at any moment could be found and discovered. Like if he lifts up the casket, he's screwed. Or when he sees the tall man walking down the street and he just stops, turns, and looks at him. I thought that was a good suspenseful moment, like putting yourself in the kid's shoes. Like if you saw that happen and he just turned and looked at you, that'd be creepy. And other than that, I would say for my negatives is that the acting is not that good. I felt like everybody in this movie was meh, and then they just had moments where they really weren't that good, and then especially like the outside characters, the ones that really don't have much of a role at all, like the medium girl, like the gypsy, and the little girl that works with the old lady there, and it's like they're bad. And this movie just feels chopped and very heavily edited. Like, there's just random scenes that don't make any sense. Like, there's a scene with a girl who goes to the funeral home. She's dead. Who was that? We never see her. We never know what happened to her, what that meant. And then there's just like this nanny who's in here for a quick jump scare, and then she's gone. Who was she? Is that really the nanny? We never see her again. It's just like you can tell there's things missing here because the story just kind of jumps all over the place. And there's just things missing. So uh, I would say that this story is really not that interesting overall. It's just kind of random, and there's really no explanation. Like, the tall man to me is not really scary, and neither are the little people, and neither, like, there's no story behind him. Like, what is he? He's not human, but how does he survive? What does he do? He just collects people and makes them dwarfs? Like, it's just random, and there's really no explanation that's ever given. And I think that was done on purpose. So, yeah, like his motivation. Like, there's no motivation. He's just creating dwarfs, or I guess slaves. And the ending is dumb. It's confusing too. And if you know what a phantasm is, I guess you'll see it coming. According to the dictionary, phantasm is a apparition or a fantasy. It's got a few definitions, but basically it just means that it's all imaginary. Like, so yeah, that kind of just spoils the ending, but that's how a lot of these sequels are, right? That's what I heard. So yeah, I wasn't crazy about the ending, and I feel like this movie's so dark. There's so many like dark scenes where you can't even see the actor's face. It's just so dark. This whole movie takes place like at night, like over like 80% of the time. It's just too dark. So yeah, wasn't crazy about the cinematography. But final thoughts. Okay movie, just wasn't my cup of tea. I don't see myself revisiting this ever again, really. It was a decent first time watch, but overall, just a little underwhelmed. Nothing that special. I mean, there's some fun moments to be had. I like the car chasing. There's some cool stuff that they were able to pull off. They pull off some neat tricks for a low budget film like this. So I'll say when it comes to Phantasm, if you haven't seen this cult classic, maybe consider streaming it, borrowing it from a friend, or renting it at Redbox. The hottest chick in this movie will be the antique store girl, Sally. And the best scene in this movie will be the scene where the sphere sticks the guy in the head and it drains him of all his blood. And interesting fact, the guy who created the ball died before this movie was ever released. So he never really got to see it on film. Alright, so this movie opens up with sex and death. How awesome. We get to see some boobs, and then we find out that the tall man is the woman in lavender. That's her credit at the end of the movie. Is the woman in lavender. So he is this woman. So the tall man, let's talk about this. So he draws people from bars to a cemetery, fucks them, lets them finish, and then kills them. Why not take them to the cemetery or a back alley somewhere and then kill them to then make them dwarfs? He lets them finish, so that makes me theorize and say that maybe the tall man gets his power, like his power stems from people's cum inside him. So he has to like get guys to fuck him as a woman, and then once they jizz inside him, he's got that power, and then he kills them. Like, I don't need you no more. Because it makes no sense. Is he getting off on it? Is the tall man really into it? Like, he seems to be enjoying it. You know, like, but then, like, towards the end, he has the knife, and he's, like, the lady in lavender with Mike. And he's gonna, like, kill him without fucking him. So, I don't know, like, does he have to fuck them? It seems like that's what he wants to do. He does it with Tommy, the one friend, and he tries to do it again with Jody. So it's just odd. And then it's like he changes at some point. So it's like the guy underneath never felt the weight difference. Like it went from like a skinny young woman to a older, like 6'7", like tall. Like, I mean, I think Angus Scrimm is 6'4", but they gave him like these shoes to make him a few inches taller. But you would feel the weight difference if he was really like this big guy on top of you. And that shot makes no sense at the beginning. So you get the shot of their legs when they're having sex, and they're clearly on top of each other, prone, just on the ground. But then when we see the shot of her on top of him, she's clearly in a like sitting down on top of him position. So she must be very flexible or something. Like that doesn't make sense, that position. So it's also just disrespectful to have sex on top of someone's grave. And speaking of which, the main character, Mike, he's riding his dirt bike through the grave, just kicking up dirt. Like, what an asshole. Like, yeah, he deserves to die, but he doesn't. And then we see the tall man. He lifts this like 500-pound casket and throws it in the back of the car. He's been lifting weights. So then Mike, he goes to the gypsy woman, and then like she just has this box that just appears out of nowhere. So I guess she really does have powers. But then again, this whole movie never happened, or did it? So that was just a weird scene. Like it's just to set up this little thing later on about like facing your fears and not like giving into fear and just suck it up. Grow a pair, Mikey. Just what the whole box thing was for. I feel like that scene could just be taken out. Seriously. That scene and the woman that was in that scene going to the funeral home to therefore die off camera when she screams, and that was not her scream. No fucking way. That was somebody else in post. There's a lot of weird sounds. I noticed that, especially when I went to like record clips. Like there's a lot of weird sound effects and like added post noises in the movie where it's like, that's not that person. And so then, like, he's spying on his brother. He's spying on him all the time, and he's worried that his brother's going to leave him. It's like, well, he's going to leave you because you're a stalker. Quit. Get off his ass, and maybe he'll, not leave. But if you piss him off by stalking him at the bar, at his own friend's funeral, he's, like, at the funeral from a distance, like, with binoculars, being a fucking creep, and then he watches his brother have sex at the cemetery, and then he acts like he can see the woman's breast from his angle and at that distance. Get out of here. No way. There's no way Mike saw her tits from that far. He must have had like LASIK surgery and binocular like eye vision. Like there's no way. There's no way he saw her tits from where he was standing. And then we get this cool little dream sequence where like the people from the ground come up and like Angus Scrimm's like standing behind the bed just with this weird like evil smile on his face. It's probably the best shot of the movie. It's right there. Best shot. It's probably like the most iconic image from the movie. So then we get the stuck under the... Oh my god, the car scene makes no sense. And the editing, that's another thing about this movie. It's edited weird, which is... I think I kind of talked about it, like, there's things missing. So yeah, the editing in this film is odd, like, especially this scene. So he's underneath the car, because he's like Tommy Jarvis in part 4. He's very good with cars, and he's underneath it, and then like it starts shaking for like a good 30 seconds, and he just stays underneath it, waiting for it to fall on him, and then eventually it does, so that's his fault. He should have left. But the angle, like he was almost on his side, and if it fell, like it should have crushed and killed him, but it didn't. It just pinned him, and we get a good like 10-second shot of him struggling and grunting like, I'm stuck. And then he sees like his brother's feet, but he thinks it's like a bad guy. And then he hits his brother in the foot, and his brother's all upset, like, what the hell? And it's like, no, what the hell to you? You just witnessed this car fall on top of your little brother, and you hear him underneath it screaming and grunting, like, I'm stuck, and you're not going to lift a finger, not even a foot. He's just standing perfectly still right next to the car, like, whatever. He's like not even going to be like, are you okay? Nothing at all. So he deserved that hammer to the foot. But here's what's also odd about that scene. Like, so he's stuck underneath the car, but then when he hits his brother's foot with the hammer, he's just magically out from underneath the car, like easy peasy. Just got out from underneath. Like, what? Okay, so yeah. That's just dumb. So then he breaks into the funeral home. He wants to find out what's really going on. And then we get that scene where he's like hiding in the casket. And then the caretaker gets killed. And is the caretaker wearing makeup? He looks weird. There's something odd about his face. But yeah, then he gets the thing that sticks into his head, squirting all the blood like a fountain. It's a cool visual that really sticks in your mind. So, and I like that he pisses himself too. like, when he's dead, he actually pisses himself. That we don't see that enough in horror movies where people actually like piss and shit when they're dead, which is what would really happen. And so yeah, and then like the tall man and him are like mirroring each other. Then he runs away, goes back home. He gets the tall man's fingers. He's got like mustard blood. It kind of reminded me of like the orange juice blood in Halloween 3. So yeah, he takes the fingers home, and I like that when he shows the finger to his brother Jody. As soon as Jody just opens the box and sees it, he's just like, "I believe you." It's like, no way. All right, you have any idea how hard it would be to convince anybody of that story? It's like, so what? There's a finger in here with mustard around it. It's like, yeah, he's just quick to believe it, which I kind of like because that's in so many movies when someone's like, "You gotta believe me," and they're like, "You're crazy." It's in too many movies. So I'm kind of glad at the same time that he's like, "I believe you," but I guess that also makes sense because it's all a dream. Of course, he believes him. Whatever you dream to happen will happen. It's all a dream. Uh, that one scene with them like playing guitar, it's only in the movie to set up this weird thing with like the magnet to like the strings, and then like later on there's like these two poles, and Reggie goes in, he like touches the poles, and it like hurts the tall man. Is that his weakness? I don't get that scene. Can someone explain that to me? There's these two poles, and then if you put your hands on it, the lady in lavender, aka the tall man, goes, "Ah!" And I don't get the tall man's powers in this movie. They don't make sense. Like, he's got the power of telekinesis where he can like forcibly push Mike off his dirt bike. In that one scene, he just pushes him off the dirt bike. He's blowing doors open without touching them. He's teleporting, but then he's also running. Like, what can he do? What not do? Like, why can't he just teleport here and there? It makes no sense. So yeah, I don't get his powers. Where do his powers come from? I want to know more about the tall man. I'm sure there's explanations later on, but let's just pretend this is a standalone movie and they weren't going to make sequels. I mean, it did take 10 years for part 2 to come out. So like this alone, what the hell? Like, what's the explanation with this tall man, his powers, his motive, anything? Like I said, I think he gets his power from jizz. Maybe that's my theory. That's why he's fucking people left and right. So, and we find out that he's got this room with dwarves. They got like these black barrels, and they go in there, and there's these two poles. They see the dwarves inside, and the little kid, Mike, he goes over to the poles. It's like a portal to their world. He sticks his head in. Then he falls in, and he's like rolling and falling for a few seconds. And then like the brother is somehow able to like grab him and pull him in without like blindly. Like, he doesn't stick his head in. He just boom, arm in, grabs him, pulls his brother back in. So, like, how did he reach him? He should have been falling. He would have been far by then. But whatever. Looking past that, he's in there for like 5 seconds, sees the dwarves and their barrels next to them, and is quickly able to explain everything. Like, this is like exposition dump scene right here.
The dwarves. And they gotta crush them because of the gravity and the heat.
After he gets pulled back, he's like, "Oh my god, I get it now. Okay, so they have to get shrunken down, crushed." I think that was the word he used. They get crushed down, thrown into this portal to be slaves. And they have to be short because of heat and gravity and blah, blah, blah. And then they're all like, "Yeah, that makes sense." It's like, what? How the fuck did you come up with that from 5 seconds of looking at small people on their planet? And if they have to be crushed to survive on that planet, why weren't you and Payne being your size in that planet for like the 10 seconds that you were in there? Like, he should have came out like, "Oh, that really hurt because I wasn't small enough." Like, just something to give merit to what he was saying. Like, your story makes no fucking sense because it wasn't hurting you. You were able to survive for the 10 seconds out there, not crushed. It's just, what? It's so weird. And then all of a sudden it like turns into like a vacuum portal, like that whole Hellraiser 2, a movie I still don't like. I said it. And then like they're getting sucked in, like at least Reggie is, and all the barrels are falling down and conveniently like bouncing over him. They're not landing on top of him like one eventually would and crush him. Like those things have to weigh at least about 100 pounds. I mean, how much does a dwarf weigh? How much do those barrels weigh? It has to have some weight to them. They would crush his ass. But they bounce like they're empty. So maybe they are. Yeah, I don't know. So, but why weren't those things in the portal anyways? They were just all stacked, like 100. And they're like, Reggie says something like, yeah, okay, yeah. And these are the ones that are ready to go. If they're ready to go, why aren't they just already in there? You know, like there's the portal, not even 10 feet away. Push the fucking barrels into the portal if they're ready. If Reggie's correct, why aren't they in there? So I think he's full of shit. They're not ready. It's just, there's so many things that just raise questions and there's no answers. It's like, okay, whatever. So yeah, Reggie's car. Reggie, I swear, like dies twice in this movie. His car's flipped. He's an ice cream truck driver, and then like he somehow made it out, and then like there's one scene where Mike's in the back of the car because he gets captured. Like the tall man gets him and throws him in the back. Starts driving. He has a gun. He shoots the tire, shoots the window, and dives out of the car that's driving very fast. Like when you see the car hit the tree and explode. He goes out diving like a Call of Duty character. What do they call that? The dolphin dive? Yeah, he goes like dolphin diving out of the back of the car, and just like it's okay. There's no bumps or like scratches on him. Maybe like there's like one mark on his face. But come on, he'd be fucked up from that. I love when he like MacGyvers this hammer gun. He has like a hammer, tape, a thumbtack, and a shotgun shell. He just puts it all together and it like hits the door with it and explodes a hole right in the door. That's some smart shit right there. There's some smart character decisions in this movie. And so I know I'm jumping all over the place, but let's go back. I just want to point out something very dumb, but the scene is only it goes out this way because it's just to ramp up tension, really. Where what's his name? Jody. His car comes up to him at the gate. He's like got this gun. He's got his gun out. He's like M1911 pistol. And he's like, "Who's in there?" And then he slowly walks around the car, and then the window rolls down, and it's Mike. You know, Jody was going to shoot him. Like Mike was stupid in that moment. Like your brother could have shot you right in your face. And there's clearly no one in the car, but then there is when Mike reveals himself. Like, why didn't Mike reveal himself right away? Like, when he pulled up and stopped, he could have honked his horn, flashed his high beams, rolled down the window like, Mike, get... Or, I keep saying the opposite names. Jody, get the fuck in! But instead, he decided to go the dramatic route and just stay silent for, like, a whole 20 seconds, risking getting shot in the face. Moron! And then, like... They're driving down the road and they're like shooting the car behind them. I like that scene. That's fun. But one of them's like, there's no one driving that mother. And then the other one, like, not even like a minute later, is like, there's no one driving that car. It's like, yeah, didn't you hear that guy? He said that too. So, who are these antique shop people? Like, they come out of nowhere. Who are these people? What's their relation to Sally and the other girl? It's just like, all right, we're going to go to the funeral home. Mike, we're going to drop you off at the antique shop where there just so happens to be this, picture of the tall man from the late 1800s. So this guy's been killing people for a long time. This alien figure, tall man, he's been around for a while. So he's been absorbing a lot of jizz to survive that long. And so, what else? I got a lot of shit written down here, but I've jumped all over the place, so I'm kind of lost in my notes. Mike gets captured, blah, blah, blah. Mike and Jody, they somehow get split up when the lights go out, and there's like a windstorm. And then Reggie dies. He gets killed by the lady in lavender. I mean, I guess I can buy why he wasn't suspicious of her, but like you walk out of a funeral home and there's just a random woman sitting out there, like that's a trap. You should know it's a trap. But here's the dumbest part of the whole movie. Like, this would never be in a movie today because it's just so damn convenient, really. Like, so he drops off his brother, Mike, at the house. He's like, stay here, lock up. I'm going to go to the mine that's over yonder, whatever. And then, but that's not really the plan. So that's confusing too. It's like his plan was for Mike to stay home, but then Mike is the one that makes the plan work. So Mike gets attacked by the tall man, runs to the mine shaft, jumps over it. The tall man falls into the mine that was said to be like 1,000 feet deep. And up on top of this hill, there's like these two giant boulders that Jody pushes down the hill somehow. I guess he's been lifting the weights too, like the tall man lifting that casket. They just conveniently fall into the hole, and it looks like they fall in. They don't just like cover the hole on top. They fall in. If they were small enough to fit in the hole and it's 1,000 feet deep, wouldn't they just fall all the way down to the ground? Like, they just float on top, but it covers the whole hole. Like, get the fuck out of here. Really? Come on. Just pushes the rocks, they fall down the hill, and they cover the hole conveniently. Like, that's where they landed. What the fuck ever. And then, it's a dream. The whole movie was a dream. And the ice cream man, Reggie, is like, your brother died in a car accident. But Mike seems to be convinced that his dream was real. He's like, I know those rocks aren't going to hold him. It's like, what do you mean? It's a dream. It never happened. But then he goes to his room and boom, final scare. He just gets sucked right into the mirror. He sees the tall man in the corner, and he says, I guess, what's his iconic line in the whole franchise, which is, boy. That's his catchphrase. But yeah, I also just find it creepy that the ice cream man with that haircut is going to take care of this boy. Like, I get he's an orphan now, but you don't just get to say, all right, I get custody now. That's not your decision. Like, how old is this kid? 13, 14? Mike, you don't get to just be like, well, I was friends with your brother, so I'm going to take care of you. Go pack your bags. We're going to hit the road. No. It's just the way that scene plays out with just the fire behind him. It seems like a romantic setting, so I thought they were like about to kiss. Just the way he was looking at him and talking to him was like, I'm going to take care of you. Get in my ice cream truck and I'll give you a popsicle to suck on. That's what... It was just creepy to me. I was like, ugh. All right, whatever. I know I just took that in a dark place, but the ice cream man adopting him, whatever. All right, so those are my thoughts on Phantasm. What did you think about this movie? Put your thoughts of it in the comments below. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. If you like what you've seen here, hit this like button, share it with all your friends, and become a subscriber today just by clicking on my cartoon face in about 5 seconds. And until next time, auf Wiedersehen.